All right, guys, good morning. Or I guess technically it's afternoon now. Just wanted to check in. Like I said, I am back in Delaware, and yesterday was my first day back from my trip. And we had some really good and positive things happen yesterday. Just kind of running around and trying to do the daily things that we need to do when we come back from a trip. I had to go pick up a few groceries. I had some phone calls that I needed to catch up on, and some people that I needed to get in contact with that I had kind of fell out of while I was on the road and traveling and such, that I needed to catch up on. I was playing a little bit of catch up on some of my correspondence and communication, if you will. But I had a lot of really, really awesome things come out of just approaching my day with purpose, and even just going and getting those things done. I didn't go out of my way to buy things for homeless people or anything like that, but I did talk to people who were receptive to hearing what I had to say. I did start working on making plans and assembling my A team for a project that I kind of had an inspiration on, that I think is going to be a really, really awesome thing here for the state of Delaware, especially for my fellow theater kids. Like those of you who are the closet theater nerds like me, and who maybe you feel like there were opportunities to be in a role or be cast in a play, especially a musical, that maybe now you feel like, oh, I'm too old, or I'm not the right gender, or whatever that roadblock or obstacle might be. I'm working on something for you guys. Well, it's for me too, but I'm working on something for us, okay? So we can do those things together, and I'm so excited about it. I reached out to one of my friends who was one of the most organized people that I know, which is not my strong suit, and kind of gave her the elevator pitch of this thing, and she seemed not only so receptive, but excited about it. And I am so pumped that it's something that she thinks would be a great idea, and something that that the idea has some legs to it. And just that validation alone of no, Jose, I don't think you're crazy for having this random idea about this thing that no one's really doing right now. That was such a win in and of itself. And then for her to say, dude, that sounds awesome, and yeah, I want to get involved and I'll help you organize, chef's kiss. And I'm not going to mention her by name, but if you're watching this, you know who you are. And seriously, so much. I am so pumped about doing this thing, and I'm even more pumped about the fact that I'm going to be able to lean on your experience and your wisdom and your background, and the skills that you have that I lack, to make this thing phenomenal. So I felt really good about that, and I've been documenting all of this stuff and trying to bring you along on my journey and these adventures that I'm taking. So I wanted to pop in with a quick message this afternoon, to let you know that today I'm doing something that a lot of people told me that I really should have been doing and prioritizing, which is just kind of taking some time from me. I've talked about these opportunities that we have that we just sit on and we don't do anything with them. And today is a perfect example. I had a gift card to Vernon Powell Shoes that I had won as part of a gift basket for a karaoke contest once upon a time. And the closest Vernon Powell shoe store to me is down in Rehoboth, which, is not terribly far. It's about a 45-minute drive from my house. But I was never a shoe guy, and so that gift card just sat in my wallet, taking up space and collecting dust. And it's not for much, it's $50. But I decided this morning, somewhat impulsively, as has been kind of the running theme, that I was just going to take a drive down there today, and I was going to get myself a pair of shoes because I need a new pair, and it's $50 less that I have to spend, or I don't have to go to Walmart and buy another $20 pair of no-name slip-on loafers. I have $50 towards a pair of shoes sitting in my pocket right now. So why not take advantage of it? And it's not the most beautiful day. It's raining a little bit right now, but it's still a great day out, right? And why not just take a nice leisurely drive down to the beach? I'm not on a schedule. I'm not beholden to any appointments today. I have the time. I have enough gas in my car to get me there and back. And I'll be able to save myself, of having to buy 2 or 3 pairs of the cheap Walmart shoes over the next couple of months if I get myself a more quality pair of sneakers or casual shoes to wear. So rather than just have that gift card continue to take up space, like, why not take advantage of it? Why not take the afternoon for myself, make this drive down to the beach, listen to a podcast, laugh along with some comedians, I'll just say it's a very well-known stand-up comedy podcast that I'll be listening to. I believe on one of the previous installments, whether I've posted it yet or not, you can hear the voice of the host. And I'll just say that it's a podcast that's based out of the great and large state of Texas. And leave it at that. But I enjoy listening to that when I'm on road trips because it's stand-up comedy. I get to laugh along with jokes that the comedians are saying, and it gives me a little bit of that serotonin boost that we all kind of chase, or I think we all kind of chase. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to just enjoy the drive. No need to speed, no need to drive aggressively. I'm out for a leisurely afternoon stroll, so I'm going to enjoy my ride down there. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to film in the store or if I'll just do like a story time. But yeah, today is going to be about like prioritizing, just practicing a little bit of self-care and self-love and prioritizing my stuff instead of just being so compelled to get this message out that I neglect my own health and well-being and emotional state and all of that stuff that we do need to make sure that we're cognizant and aware of. So that's what I'm going to do today. And if we manage to spread the message and I manage to hand out some cards along the way, great. If I don't, that's okay too, because I'm still accomplishing something today sheerly by moving through the world and moving through my day with purpose. And that in and of itself is a win, guys. Remember, the choice to do these types of things, the choice to live intentionally, the choice to make yourself the hero of your own story, that choice exists solely in the space between your ears, okay? And the only person who can make that choice is you, all right? The world doesn't dictate you. Like I said, I say it over and over again, like, we can't control the world. Life is going to continue to life. Unexpected occurrences are going to continue to happen. That's the nature of the world that we live in. The only thing that we can control is how we react to the situation. You can't control the world. You only control which version of you shows up to it each day. And the beautiful and most powerful thing about this whole situation is that even if your day started out on a certain trajectory, you've got that steering wheel in your head, and you can choose to steer yourself towards a different destination than the one you're currently headed at. If you don't like the journey that you're on, you can opt for a detour, okay? And that choice can happen any instant throughout the course of your day. You just got to make the decision up here first, put a little bit of action behind it, and I promise you that while you may not be able to fix everything, you can absolutely make an effort to try and improve your situation, improve your life. And it is amazing what happens when people see that happening for you, and they see that you're genuine about it and you're not self-motivated. Like, the help and the resources and the advice and the offers for collaboration and partnership and mentorship, they just come crawling out of the woodwork. I really believe that people are inherently good at their heart and at their core, and that when they see other people trying to do good, it motivates them to want to help. It motivates them to want to do what they can as well. And that's been the purpose of this whole thing from the get-go. Is, I didn't approach this as like, I want someone to help me do all of these things. I didn't approach this as, I want you to give me money to help fund my efforts. I approach this as, I will contribute what I can contribute because I feel good about that. I don't mind coming out of pocket a little bit. I'm used to operating on a tight budget. That's been the story of my life for as long as I can remember. So I'm comfortable with that. But I don't want to take food out of anybody else's mouth. I don't want to be the reason why someone else can't pay their bills on time. So I don't ask anyone for financial assistance with these efforts that I'm doing. I ask them instead, hey, you know what, I don't want your money, I want your experience, I want your skill set, I want your expertise, I want the thing that you are really great at that maybe I have a blind spot in. I need your mentorship and your guidance. And if that means that, you're an attorney or you're an accountant and you know how to process those papers to eventually turn this thing into a nonprofit organization, I don't need you to cut me a check for my, community outreach. But if you're willing to donate that 30 minutes or whatever it takes to, fill out said forms and check said boxes and save me from having to pay someone else $3,000 an hour or whatever you happen to charge, those are the things that I welcome. Those are the things that I seek out. Because just like, the general contractor who goes out and donates his afternoon to work with Habitat for Humanity, he could be charging for his skill set. If he wanted to take a job on that weekend afternoon to do some side work, instead of going to help build a home for homeless people, he could absolutely do that. And he could be capitalistically driven at all times. That's his option and it's his prerogative, or her. But they donate that time, they donate their skills, they donate their experience, they donate their unique backgrounds, and the unique tools that they bring to the table, because it's for the betterment of their neighborhood, their community, their society, maybe because it helps them feed their soul. Whatever their motivation, they don't have to contribute financially. They can contribute through their sweat equity, they can contribute through mentorship and advice and guidance, especially if these are things that they have accomplished in their own lives. I truly believe that, sharing our wisdom and kind of creating this societal, working knowledge base, some people call it socialistic, right? Because if I have unique skills, then that makes me marketable. And if I give it to everybody, then, the talent pool is diluted and I can't make as much money. Sure, you can look at it that way. Or you can just take a step back and say, hey, you know what, if I can share this wisdom, if I can teach someone else this skill, it's going to make my little corner of the world that much better for it. I take it back to the idea of a high tide raises all the ships, right? So if I can throw my bucket of water in to help raise the tide, and you can do the same, and so can the next person, then we can all float a little bit higher together. And again, it doesn't have to come over. I'm not talking about going out and paying your neighbor's electric bill. I'm talking about if you know how to build cabinets and your neighbor needs to come up with a side hustle because they're struggling to pay bills, then you can say, hey, I can teach you to build some simple woodworking things, and you can start selling them through an Etsy shop or whatever the case may be to make a little bit of additional income. It's those types of things that we can do that don't cost us anything except for a little bit of our time, except for a little bit of lungs, a little bit of voice box, a little bit of thought to formulate your sentences and organize your thoughts, which I still struggle with, in case you haven't noticed. But those things, all they really cost us in the end is a little bit of effort on our part. And I like to think that, if we're neighbors, and our backyards are touching, separated by a fence or not, if your lawnmower breaks, and mine is fine, I'm gonna let you borrow it. Maybe I don't let you borrow it until after I cut my grass, but I'm still not gonna say you can't use it. And maybe I don't have a weed whacker, but you do. And so I'm not, I I don't expect you to come over and edge my lawn for me. But if you offer to let me borrow yours after you're done, then I don't have to try and figure out where to get that money from to buy that weed whacker right now. And it would be great if I get myself to a position where I can buy my own. But knowing that I don't have to go without because my neighbors and my community has my back, or that I don't have to worry about getting a nasty letter from the HOA if you happen to live in a house where you required joining an HOA. They regulate things like that, even as to like what color your front door can be sometimes, which I think is crazy personally, but that's just my personal opinion. But I mean, if you're in that type of a situation, like if you don't have the means to buy that piece of equipment right now, it can result in you getting fined, and then it impacts you even more negatively on your financial side. So why wouldn't we want to share our resources in that regard, right? I don't want to see my next door neighbor struggle or have to stress about buying a replacement lawnmower. I mean, after all, I just got back from 5 days away from my house, and who do you think was keeping an eye on my place for me while I was gone to make sure nothing crazy was going on in my absence? I mean, it could have been Ring doorbell, sure, but it was also my next door neighbors and the guy who lives across the street from me. And the reason why I know that and I can feel confident with that is because I talk to them. I've talked to my neighbors. I've made an effort to learn their first names. I've made an effort to get to know them a little bit and to talk to them instead of just waving when we're happen to be mowing the grass on the same day. And once you do that, and like I feel like once you put a little effort into reestablishing the idea of like we're a community instead of just individual bubbles floating on top of a glass of soda or something where nobody's really connected. It's amazing how quickly people want to jump back into that old idea of like it's okay to knock on your neighbor's door. It's okay to go by and say, hey, I baked some cookies and I made some extras. I thought you might want some, so I brought you a plate. Like, that's okay. And if they're not receptive to it and they say, thanks, but we're gluten-free here, or I appreciate it, but you know we're watching our sugar intake, and they refuse those cookies, that's okay too, because that's their choice, right? But the point is that we've made the effort on our side of the fence, right? We came over to introduce ourselves to the new neighbors, and we tried to welcome them to the neighborhood. If they're receptive to that, that's a bonus. And if they're not, that's okay too. Because on our side of the fence, we let them know that I'm not putting a lock on my gate. And if you decide to come over because you need to borrow a couple of eggs, or a cup of sugar, or a stick of butter, whether I have it or not, I'm not going to, give you the stink eye and mean mug you when you come to my front door, or I'm not going to be approaching the door and cracking it open with a weapon, at the ready. I'm not here to put anybody else's health, well-being, or safety at risk. I am here to be a part of this community and be a good neighbor if you would like it. And hey, if I'm in the backyard and I'm throwing burgers and dogs on the grill, feel free to stroll on over and grab a plate. Because I may not have much, but what I do have, I'm willing to share. And I feel like a lot of people truly feel that same way. And I've seen a lot of trending towards the opposite occurring on social media and in the news cycles, and there's a lot of fear and distrust that's being sown like these terrible crops in Middle America. And I'm not downing Middle America, but I'm saying whereas we used to see fields of wheat and corn and soybeans and such, I feel like now we're seeing those same crops being replaced by just fields of like distrust and isolation and negative self-talk. Like these have become our national bumper crops, and it wasn't always this way, guys. So remember that at any given moment, we the people, like remember that phrase, that was important when they wrote it, and it's just as important now. We, the people, are the ones that are in control, and we have designated certain representatives. You remember, like in school when we had student council, these people were supposed to speak for us as the students. They were supposed to push forward the issues and the changes that were important to us, right? Whether it was something as simple as we want designated pizza on Fridays in the cafeteria, right? They were supposed to speak for us. They were our voice to the powers that be and the systems that were in place. And I feel like we've lost that underlying concept to a certain extent. And people now feel like they have to fall in line with the personal opinions of their elected officials instead of it being the other way around. They're supposed to be echoing our voices. We're not supposed to be echoing theirs. And if there is a platform that a politician has that you do not agree with, you don't have to fall in line with their ideology or their moral compass just because they were somebody that was on a ballot, okay? That's why we have write-ins. Because if you don't like the choices that are available to you, you can write in your own. And I get it as far as the whole, but if I write in a vote for Mr. Rogers, then, that vote is basically going to count for nothing. Well, maybe in the grand scheme of the election, it doesn't count for much. But it's still a vote, and it's your vote. And there's power in that. And every single person who has the right to vote has that power. Just because that vote is going to be one amongst millions doesn't mean that vote is any less valid than any other vote that's cast in any ballot box for that election. I personally am not a big fan of the current state of the electoral system. I believe that the Electoral College was a great idea when it was first created, and I believe that certain aspects of it are still very valid, some of the underlying concepts. However, I personally also feel as if utilizing the Electoral College and system to be the know-all, end-all as to which person obtains the highest position of power in our country does present itself in a manner where the popular vote, which is the vote of the people, does not necessarily always get reflected in who wins. And it becomes more about where those particular people were geographically located and how densely populated their state is as to how much weight and power their cumulative votes will count for. And I feel like there's an issue in that just because I feel like every person's vote, whether you live in Alaska, Nebraska, Utah, Virginia, Carolina, Rhode Island, every single vote should be weighted the same. And I feel like if that were the underlying theme, then a lot of the disillusioned voters would be a lot more apt to stand on their ideals and to not just vote for the lesser of two evils when it comes to their opinions about the two-party system of candidates. These things are entrenched. They're systemic. And that's fine. I'm glad that we have a system in place. But nobody ever said that if we recognize things could be improved, that we weren't allowed to try and update the system. And I have a real hard time believing that there aren't ways that we could have updated this particular system since, the 1700s when it was created, the late 1700s, early 1800s. It's 2025, guys, and we're still operating on that same thing. I mean, think about the fact that back then they were riding horses such things as automatic crop harvesters, or combines or tractors for them to utilize. They were out working the fields by hand and with pack animals in order to even just not have to physically dig trenches in their fields to plant, their crops. And even that, in their day, was such a technological advancement. So we're now living in the age of smartphones and global connectivity and live internet streaming and having a supercomputer at your disposal in your pocket 24 hours a day. So much so that a lot of people have problems with disconnecting from it. It's become that entrenched in our society. And again, these are advancements, and they can be good things and they can be bad things depending on your perspective. But what I'm saying is that our world has changed so fundamentally since that plan was originally created, and we haven't updated it at all. We might as well still be reading, all of our text in ancient Latin or Sanskrit, instead of texting each other emojis and using internet abbreviations. There's no reason why we shouldn't update things. And if we feel like things aren't working, we should feel comfortable and empowered as citizens, as taxpayers, as whatever designation gives us that measure of authority, to raise our concerns, to ask the questions, to say, why haven't we looked at this? Because again, we may not have the power or the authority to enact the change ourselves, but solely by asking the question and raising the idea of it, we can enact change. We can throw that pebble into the pond that's going to start the ripples. So don't forget that you have that power, and it's here, and it's there at your disposal every single day. You are like Professor X in the X-Men. Your superpower lies up here. So don't forget you have access to it. And use the tools and the gifts that you have, because they are unique, and every single one of them has value. Just like me right now, you're in the driver's seat. So remember, you can always choose to steer yourself to another location if you don't like the direction your journey is headed. Don't be afraid to take that detour. After all, you're the one driving. So even if it's rainy right now, I want you to make the choice that today, you're not just going to have a good day, you're going to make it a great one. Alright? Much love, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.